Welcome to the Ben Wood Johnson podcast. You can visit Dr. Johnson's blog at benwoodpost.com. Dr. Johnson's works can be found at drbenwoodjohnson.com. You can also support Dr. Johnson on Patreon, the link to which is in the description. Hey, welcome to the Ben Wood Johnson podcast. Today is October 15, 2018, and this is podcast number 20. It is a pleasure to have you back here with us this week. We are going to continue discussing our topic, and the topic this week is cogito. But this particular week, we're going to be introducing the concept of a human thought. And the name of the podcast this week is The Mystery of a Human Thought. Now, you might be wondering, what do I mean by the mystery of a human thought? When we're talking about a thought, a human thinking, a human capacity to think, it is a mystery because there's no definite proof as to what's happening in the human mind. It is not clear what's occurring physiologically, biologically, psychologically, even in the human mind. Of course, we have guessed it to some extent. We have tried to understand patterns and certain behaviors, certain conditions that are going to lead to certain behaviors and conduct and whatnot. But we don't know for sure. We don't know for certain what the human mind is, what it is about. So in this regard, what a person does or what a person is capable of doing is not set in stone. So when it comes to the cogito, the idea is to understand what catapults the person to think and to think the way he does and to act according to that thinking process. So this is where the mystery of the thought somewhat comes into play, because there's no definitive proof as to what's occurring in a person's mind. So in this brief introduction, we are going to sort of, set the stage for this debate as to what is the human thought, and in the context of a thought being a mystery. As usual, without further ado, let's delve right into it. The mystery of a thought. What is a thought? A thought could be understood as a conversation that the being is having with the self. It is a continuous conversation. A thought could occur at an introspective level. So what that means is that the being must go deep within the soul in order to understand the nature of the self. And there are so many things happening at the molecular level inside the being, and there are so many things happening outside of the being. In other words, in the environment where the being is evolving, or in the environment where the being evolves, the being is constantly communicating with the self. He is constantly communicating with the other entities outside of the self. So there's this back and forth between what the being is seeing, experiencing, imagining, and forging in the self with what's actually happening. And this back and forth is what is a thought. And the being is in the process of understanding, realizing, recognizing, analyzing what is taking place at that point. And the being is examining what is taking place in the self. So a thought could be understood as a conversation occurring at the subconscious level. So what that means is that the thinker is not necessarily in control of what's happening. The thinker is not necessarily in control of his thoughts. Now, what creates a thought? What are the mechanisms of a thought? We could examine this question from several angles. We could examine this question from a biological standpoint. We could examine it from a physiological standpoint. We could also examine this question from the anatomy of the being himself. Okay? But at the end of the day, what is a thought? What constitutes a thought is a mystery. And that is why the title of this podcast is The Mystery of a Thought. What would make a thought such a mystery? A thought is a mystery not only to the thinker, but it is also a mystery to the person or the entity observing the thinker. I could not look at someone else's eyes and automatically decipher what's happening in that person's mind. I couldn't guess what's occurring in a person's mind at any given point in time. Whenever I look at another individual, whatever I perceive about him is my subjective understanding of whatever I think is happening to him. I could not be certain of what's happening at the individual or what's happening to the individual or in the individual's mind. And that is one of the things that make the nature of the human thinking a mystery.